What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to my Sunday Stock Talk, or as it should be appropriately named, what the hell is going on in the world? Today is Sunday, which means that I'll be breaking down news that came out over the weekend and sharing what I think that this means for the overall stock market. I'm also going to be sharing 8 stocks that I think are going to be making huge moves this week. Last week, it was actually pretty interesting to see most of my predictions actually come true. And as always, I'll be giving you an update on my long-term portfolio and what I bought this week. If you're new here, I'm Greg, and I talk about the stock market, options trading, and I also tweet about what stocks I think are overpriced, just like my friend Elon Musk. If these are things that you're interested in, make sure that you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you're notified every single time that I post a video. We're going to start out by talking about everybody's favorite investing grandpa, good old Warren Buffett. If you've taken a look at Robinhood at all today, you know that he's plastered all over the front page. Obviously, everybody wants to know what Warren Buffett is buying and selling, especially during an economic recession. And this is because he's always coming out ahead after every single market crash. Before the 2020 market crash, Warren Buffett was sitting on $125 billion of cash, just waiting on the sidelines, and now he's on the playing field, letting everybody know what's up. Usually he's pretty outspoken when it comes to economic recessions, but he's been a little bit shy recently. Something that he has spoken avidly about is his investments in airlines, and this started in 2016. During the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting, Warren Buffett announced that he's going to be selling out of all of his airline stocks, and it was his mistake to buy them. His reasoning behind this major move was that he thinks that COVID-19 has changed the airline industry altogether, and this pandemic has shut off air travel in this country. Let's all give the airline industry a moment of silence before we see it crash this week. The airline industry is heavily tied with cruise lines, so I think that both of them are going to be taking a nosedive. It will likely be revisiting the lows that we saw in March. With this being said, I've always been an advocate of doing your own market research and not depending on what other investors are doing. This includes billionaires like Warren Buffett. Everybody has different goals, so what Warren Buffett wants for himself as well as his company might be completely different from what you want. It's also important to note that there's no one clear path that all billionaires are taking. Mark Cuban is investing in different things than Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett is investing in different things than Bill Gates. This means that there's no one path that'll take you to being a billionaire. So I don't completely agree with Warren Buffett in this situation. Because my goals don't align with Warren Buffett, I'll be investing more into airline companies when they revisit these lows. Personally, I don't think that we're going to be going back to bandwagon traveling, and I think that airlines are still going to be part of our future. Is it going to be a lot uglier before it gets better? Probably. But I'm in this for probably the next 40 years. So I think that it's a storm that I'm willing to weather. It wouldn't be a Greg Talks Money video if we weren't talking about tech stocks, and that's what we'll be talking about next. Last week, 2 of the biggest tech companies, both Apple as well as Amazon, had their earnings reports during the midst of all this chaos of COVID-19. And it's interesting to see because they have 2 completely polarized responses to this virus. Apple refused to give their guidance for the second quarter of 2020. I can respect that. And their numbers showed that they are sitting on a fat stack of cash right now of $193 billion. Their plan is to invest $50 billion back into the company. They're going to be doing some stock buybacks, which is literally what it sounds like. They're planning to buy back shares of their own company and reinvest in themselves, which essentially brings the stock price up because there's a bunch of buying volume. They're also looking to increase their dividend by 6%, which is very interesting to see because other companies have either cut their dividends or suspended them. But we'll likely be seeing a lot of buying volume from investors because everybody wants those sweet, sweet dividend checks. On the other hand, Amazon had a pretty sweet quarter. This isn't surprising because they are the biggest online retailer in the entire world, which seems to fare pretty well, especially since they're selling toilet paper online. Unlike Apple, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos gave guidance for this next quarter, and he essentially told shareholders to expect a loss because he's planning to spend all $400 billion of expected profit on this pandemic. Accordingly, we may see Amazon sell off a bit, which gives us a great buying opportunity that may be presented this week. Apple and Amazon are showing that there's going to be a huge divergence even within sectors. Can you make more noise, please? Long term, I think that these 2 big companies are going to be fine, but for short-term investments such as options trading, you should be careful with what companies you're putting money into and look into their guidance for the next quarter. Unlike before, whenever we saw one company rise and fall, other companies within that sector would follow, we might see some major divergences between companies, with some companies going really high and some companies selling off, essentially leveling out the sector. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is something that I covered in yesterday's video about Kim Jong Un. I don't want to get into the details of everything. If you want to see that video, check it out here. But essentially, the condition of Kim Jong Un's health was unknown. Over the weekend, Kim Jong Un made an appearance, so the state of his health seems to be just fine. I guess he was shacking up with 2,000 spirited women. And now we're avoiding war. Hopefully, because in other news, basically every major government is pissed off with China right now. Australia wants to investigate the origin of this virus. Germany and Britain are both reluctant to let Chinese company Huawei into their country, and Trump has publicly blamed China for starting COVID. We've gone as far as to see some governments wanting to sue Beijing for both damages as well as reparations for starting COVID-19. I don't know who's right or who's wrong in this situation. I'm not a global ambassador or anything close to it. If you have strong beliefs about this, feel free to comment it down below. But I do know what it means for the stock market, and that's volatility. So until things are ironed out, I'm going to be very careful when it comes to investing in international companies. I want to show you some of the companies that I believe to be going up this week as well as going down. So with all that said, guys, let's get into the trades. These are the 8 stocks that I'm watching this week for my weekly watch list. I have Lockheed Martin, which is a defense company. I have Save, which is Spirit Airlines, Berkshire Hathaway Class B, Amazon, Delta Airlines, Apple, and American Airlines. And of course, the S&P 500. I want to talk about airlines first because it's probably going to be one of the most volatile industries this week. Given that Warren Buffett is selling out of all of his airline shares, we'll likely see a huge drop in the airline industry as a whole. American Airlines has a pretty significant sell-off on Friday, and they are down around 12%. And I think that they might be reaching previous lows of $8.85, which would represent a drop of nearly 20%. So if it comes to this $8.85 mark here, I will likely buy into long-term shares for American Airlines. But I am looking to place a put since we are probably going to be seeing the sell-off. Now let's talk about Delta Airlines. So Delta Airlines is currently trading at $24.26 and their previous lows were at $19.10. So this would represent a drop of about 26%, which is pretty significant. So I might be placing some shorter-term puts for Delta Airlines, American Airlines, as well as Spirit Airlines. Spirit Airlines is one of the memes among the airline industries, and their ticker symbol SAVE says it all. They dropped over 12% on Friday, and this is probably one of the better put options that I'm going to be placing this week because they have a potential of dropping nearly 50% from this $13.67 that they're at now all the way down to this low of $7.01. I do think that some airline companies will be going bankrupt because of COVID-19. Spirit has grounded a lot of their flights and they might be going bankrupt considering how far they've already dropped. So that is the airline industry out of the way. Now let's talk about tech. So I want to go over Amazon first. I do think that Amazon will be selling off this week, but I did purchase a new tripod from Amazon, making Jeff Bezos just that much richer. I think that a critical buying point for Amazon would be below $2,200, probably around previous highs around $2,175. So I'm looking to invest long-term into Amazon, and I might be placing some short-term puts for Amazon, considering that I think it's going to be selling off this week. Talked about this earlier. I think that Apple is really gaining some support, especially since it has a lot of cash right now. There's a support line here at 288, and I think this is going to continue to trend up at least until this mark here at 301.16, which we did see it hit once before. So I'll be placing some short-term calls on Apple, possibly making some long-term investments if we see it come to around 280. Now let's talk about Berkshire Hathaway. So Berkshire Hathaway, they are really cheap right now. We saw this high of 231 before the market crash. They were kind of just consolidating, trading sideways. We saw them hit 159. Now they're currently trading for 184.40. So if I were to buy this long term, this would be a return of about 25% if they were to resume to their previous highs. If they can hit 180, I'll definitely buy into this stock. Now, before we talk about the overall market, let's look into Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is a defense company, and since we have high tensions between the US, China, and the rest of the world, we might see defense companies start to shoot up this week. Currently, they have support on the simple moving average line on this 180-day chart. They've been trending between 50 and 60 RSI, which means that they are continuing to trend up, and they're still above this exponential moving average line. I might place some long-term calls for Lockheed Martin, given that there is a lot of tension in world relations right now. Now let's finally talk about SPY. So most of the companies I've been talking about, I think that they're going to be going down. So I think that this will be dragging the S&P 500 and SPY down with this. We might find some support down here at this 275 mark. So placing some short-term puts for SPY might be in my best interest. They did drop below 50 RSI, so they might start to trend down, but they did drop below it right here, and they bounced right off this exponential moving average line. So we might see this situation happen again if the Fed really does step in even further. I just want to bring up another thing about the overall stock market. Fed Chair Powell was saying that Q2 data is going to be worse data than we have ever seen before. He's saying that this recovery might start in Q3, and the increase could be substantially large, but we're unlikely to see the pre-crisis levels. So now that I've shown you my watch list for this week, let me show you what I actually invested in for my long-term portfolio. This week I made 3 investments for my long-term portfolio, which included Tesla, Bank of America, as well as Delta Airlines. Right now, airlines are at a pretty critical point, and Delta Airlines is international. I think that this company will remain afloat. Let's look at the charts for them. The 5-year chart shows that they are near a 5-year low here at 24.24, and the previous lows that we saw before this pandemic was 35.18. I bought 2 shares for $26.71, and I'm expecting to hold these for decades to come, just because I don't think we're going to find another transportation system that can take us all the way across the world in a matter of only 8 hours. Some people are speculating that people won't be traveling for business anymore, but people still have family to visit and places to be. Even in the short term, if travel is down, we will likely see it resume after this pandemic ends. The second investment that I made was 4 shares of Bank of America at $24.89. Now, taking a look at their 5-year chart, we can see that they haven't seen this level for over a year in December of 2018 during the last market crash. So this presented a great buying opportunity considering their high here at 34.36. So we might not be seeing this high anytime soon, but I am planning to hold these 5 shares for years to come. The final investment that I made this week was a fractional share of Tesla. I invested $100 into this company despite Elon Musk saying that the company is overpriced. I do think that they are overpriced in the short term. We might see the company come down within the next 2 months, but I think that this is a great long-term investment considering that they are planning to release their robo-taxis, which will help people make passive income by simply owning a Tesla, which is a wild concept. And I personally would love that if I could actually afford a Tesla car. So let me show you my account balance, which currently sits at $68.28. I deposited about $1,200 into this account this month. And I'll be dollar cost averaging using $300 a week, and I still have this cash laying around just in case there's any good deals coming up. If you want to keep up with what investments I'm making, make sure to visit the Discord link, the first link in the description below. Thanks to Science Lab for bringing this to my attention. My link was not working because it had expired, so if you weren't able to get in before, check it again. With all that said, guys, remember to stay positive, stay green. Catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.